There's that one. Bum, 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 bum. Yeah, I'm making this fucking new playlist. My shit gonna be just like, I don't know, like a bunch of vibe jams, I guess. But then I looked at it, I'm like, damn, this shit is like mostly white music, white people music. I'm like, how did I do that? I got a whole white people playlist.
That's my all my songs. I got like a film playlist of like songs I got from like really good movies or movies with good soundtracks. And I look back and I'm like, damn.
Shit is white as fuck.
I was shocked they were playing your guy at the gym, John.
Yo, I seen that video in there, yo.
I mean, I'm not shocked because it is.
For that shit, I look up and seeing that shit jamming. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Let me listen to this real quick.
Right?
And Black Eyed Peas and Christina got a new song.
I gotta hear that.
I seen that
I
shit.
fuck with the Black Eyed Peas. I don't care what nobody say. And I fuck with Will I Am, but I fuck with Fergie just as much. The other one, I don't know their names.
Of our entire species because their engineered traits will be passed on to their children and could spread over generations, slowly modifying the whole gene pool of humanity. It will start slowly. The first designer babies will not be overly designed. It's most likely that they will be created to eliminate a deadly genetic disease running in a family. As the technology progresses and gets more refined, more and more people may argue that not using genetic modification is unethical because it condemns children to preventable suffering and death and denies them the cure. But as soon as the first engineered kid is born, a door is opened that can't be closed anymore.
What?
Early on, vanity traits will mostly be left alone. But as genetic modification becomes more accepted and our knowledge of
And that's the
could
thing.
spread over generations,
The vanity traits. Because these motherfuckers can definitely create the Aryan race where they're all 6'2", blonde hair, blue eyes. Some kind of way they can genetically make it so their penises are larger than the black man.
It still won't be.
uh,
That's the only thing we couldn't figure out. How to make them have bigger penises. Yeah, they're gonna make them like a pure white race, but also make sure that they can tan, because you know, as much as they hate black people, they love
not
a
even
tan.
tan. They're gonna have something in there that just allows them not to burn anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I say if you can tweak your genetics how you want to, you can have a fucking.
I don't like the way that sounds. The engineered race, like come save this shit.
And this is what he's trying to explain. Is like, just like he said, if you just go back 100 years and tell somebody about us, not even he said in the fucking 70s. If you go back to the 70s and tell somebody, look, in a little while you're gonna have a device you can hold in your hand that's faster than any supercomputer in existence now. You'll be able to talk and see people, and like nobody in the 70s would believe that shit. This technology is here right now. So in another 20, 30 years, motherfuckers would be like, what the fuck have they been able to do with this shit?
Maybe that's why Nick Cannon is trying to have all them babies and shit, because he's trying to repopulate the earth before we got a bunch of engineered babies and robots running this shit.
This shit is so close, yo. And like they said, China already did that shit, yo. China already had.
I mean, if they were
human
cloning
trials.
animals during Hitler's time and before, then you already know. I feel like anything that they release to the public, they've already had behind the scenes
Oh, yeah.
for 20, 30, 40 years.
Exactly. That's how they're going to engineer.
They had cell phones before we ever did. You know that.
They're going to engineer a race that can live on a different planet. So now you don't have to terraform Mars. You can just live on Mars because your body is suited for that shit. They did that shit in some movie called the... What was it? It's something, man. This military group genetically modified this motherfucker. Oh, the Titan. I think that's what it was, because he went to live on the moon of Titan and try to populate that moon. But they just altered his body so much that he was like a fucking alien now, and he can just breathe that air, or like it didn't bother his ass. Like, what the fuck? So as long as these motherfuckers have these concepts and ideas, once again, most of the time science fiction normally becomes science fact. Genetic manipulation and alteration was a fucking science fiction a little while ago. Now this shit is fucking super real as fuck.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess for me, it's just like, where do we draw the line? Like, what's too far?
There is no line, and there is nothing too far. That's the whole thing. For some reason, this is what Joe Rogan says. Joe Rogan says, it seems like we're programmed to do this. We like having more advanced and more advanced and more advanced things. And so what we're going to do essentially is...
fuck up the world and then start over
we're going to do the Matrix, yo. We're going to create an artificial intelligence god, and then we're going to transform ourselves into like fucking robots, and then humans just won't exist anymore, and we'll be like some transcendent type shit. I don't fucking know, but
that's the thing is, okay, so you have our consciousness, but don't we have to continue to make more people, or do it's just the people that are here just live forever?
They'll figure out a way to like...
They'll just have certain women that they have just to have babies and shit.
Yeah, they'll be able to merge consciousnesses and create a new conscience. So not like making a new person, but making a new person, yeah. That's how they did it in Ghost in the Shell, where Major Kusanagi and the Puppet Master actually merged. So it was, like I say, because they're both artificial intelligences. So how can they mate? The same thing with two consciousness. If they're not inside of a body, like how can they produce a new consciousness? So where would new people come from?
Even just us as we are now, it's just so fucking fascinating. Like, just some liquid essentially going inside of a woman. I mean, I know it's a baby, but you know what I'm saying? Like, just a little bit of liquid could get her pregnant. And it's just weird. Just like how y'all carry the XY. Like, everything about us. We cut ourselves, we heal. Like, we're just the spinal cord and a bunch of water and organs on the inside. Everything about us. Because on the outside, we just look like this. Like, but there's so many more layers and complexities to that shit. And then, like, what are you without your consciousness? Like, if you're in a coma, I mean...
That's it, you're unconscious. You're nothing if you're unconscious.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, yeah, like, you're alive, but you're not alive.
Yeah, you don't experience, you don't know. And so that's how we know, like, you can turn that shit off and on without destroying it. Because going, like, whatever they do to sedate motherfuckers, got, like, for surgery and shit, yo, and to make you unconscious. So we understand it enough where we can use chemicals to fucking turn off your consciousness. But we don't really know what the fuck that shit is still, like... Like, you know how to manipulate that shit a little bit, but we don't know exactly what is it. Like, how does it arise? We're just a bag of meat, but this fucking sack of meat know that it knows and understand that it understands. Mm-hmm. It's aware that it is aware. And that's fucking... It's crazy.
Slowly modifying the whole gene pool of humanity. It will start slowly. The first designer babies will not be overly designed. It's most likely that they will be created to eliminate a deadly genetic disease running in a family. As the technology progresses and gets more refined, More and more people may argue that not using genetic modification is unethical because it condemns children to preventable suffering and death and denies them the cure. But as soon as the first engineered kid is born, a door is opened that can't. Early on, vanity traits will mostly be left alone. But as genetic modification becomes more accepted and our knowledge of our genetic code enhances, the temptation will grow. If you make your offspring immune to Alzheimer, why not also give them an enhanced metabolism? Why not throw in perfect eyesight? How about?
Yeah, enhanced metabolism, so you never get fat, you never ever have to wear glasses. You know what? You're
never too hungry, never too sleepy.
You're not allergic to any foods or plants or allergies or anything like that. Like, you got perfect lung capacity. Your muscle denseness and bone density are just fucking magnificent.
All of that sounds wonderful. Like, I'm not even gonna lie.
Muscular structure. Full.
Something's gonna go wrong. It always does. Does it not?
And that's the thing. Like, only you would create a super race, because only the people with enough money to have the first and early access to these technologies, they're going to take advantage of it. So the 1%, the 1% who run the world, they will be literally gods.
And be able to run the world and fuck it up for longer.
And they can live for 1,000 years with perfect eyesight, perfect hearing, never get fat, and super endurance. And yeah. And so that's the thing. And then they'll have access to like brain interface technology that fucking Elon Musk trying to create. So now you got the perfect body, and then you can merge your mind with the fucking AI of the future. And now you know everything. So you can live forever and know everything if you got that money. I'm saying these people are gonna have access to that shit first.
Genetic modification becomes more accepted and our knowledge of our genetic code enhances, the temptation will grow. If you make your offspring immune to Alzheimer, why not also give them an enhanced metabolism? Why not throw in perfect eyesight? How about height or muscular structure? Full hair? How about giving your child the gift of extraordinary intelligence? Huge changes are made as a result of the personal decisions of millions of individuals that accumulate. This is a slippery slope. Modified humans could become the new standard. But as engineering becomes more normal and our knowledge improves, we could solve the single biggest mortality risk factor, aging. 2/3 of the 150,000 people who die today will die of age-related causes. Currently, we think aging is caused by the accumulation of damage to our cells, like DNA breaks and the systems responsible for fixing those wearing off over time. But there are also genes that directly affect aging. A combination of genetic engineering and other therapy could stop or slow down aging, maybe even reverse it. We know from nature that there are animals immune to aging. Maybe we could even borrow a few genes for ourselves. Some scientists even think biological aging could be something that eventually just stops being a thing. We would still die at some point, but instead of doing so in hospitals at age 90, we might be able to spend a few thousand years with our loved ones. Research into this is in its infancy. And many scientists are rightly skeptical about the end of aging. The challenges are enormous, and maybe it is unachievable. But it is conceivable that people alive today might be the first to profit from effective anti-aging therapy. All we might need is for someone to convince a smart billionaire to make it their next problem to solve. On a bigger scale, we certainly could solve many problems by having a modified population. Engineered humans might be better equipped to cope with high-energy food, eliminating many diseases of civilization like obesity. In possession of a modified immune system, with a library of potential threats, we might become immune to most diseases that haunt us today. Even further into the future, we could engineer humans to be equipped for extended space travel and to cope with different conditions on other planets, which would be extremely helpful in keeping us alive in our hostile universe. Still, a few major challenges await us. some technological, some ethical. Many of you watching will feel uncomfortable and fear that we will create a world in which we will reject non-perfect humans and pre-select features and qualities based on our idea of what's healthy. The thing is, we are already living in this world. Tests for dozens of genetic diseases or complications have become standard for pregnant women in much of the world. Often the mere suspicion of a genetic defect can lead to the end of a pregnancy. Take Down syndrome, for example, one of the most common genetic defects. In Europe, about 92% of all pregnancies where it's detected are terminated. The decision to terminate a pregnancy is incredibly personal, but it's important to acknowledge the reality that we are pre-selecting humans based on medical conditions. There is also no use in pretending this will change, so we have to act carefully and respectfully as we advance the technology and can make more and more selections. But none of this will happen soon. As powerful as CRISPR is, and it is, it's not infallible yet. Wrong edits still happen, as well as unknown errors that can occur anywhere in the DNA and might go unnoticed. The gene edit might achieve the desired result, disabling a disease, but also might accidentally trigger unwanted changes. We just don't know enough yet about the complex interplay of our genes to avoid unpredictable consequences. Working on accuracy and monitoring methods is a major concern as the first human since we've discussed a possible positive future. Could a state cement its rule forever by forcing gene editing on their subjects? What would stop a totalitarian regime from engineering an army of modified super soldiers? It is doable in theory. Scenarios like this one are far, far off into the future, if they ever become possible at all. But the basic proof of concept for genetic engineering like this already exists today. The technology really is that powerful. While this might be a tempting reason to ban genetic editing and related research, that would certainly be a mistake. Banning human genetic engineering would only lead to the science wandering off to a place with jurisdiction and rules that we're uncomfortable with. Only by participating can we make sure that further research is guided by caution, reason, oversight, and transparency. Do you feel uncomfortable now? Most of us have something wrong with them. In the future that lies ahead of us, would we have been allowed to exist? The technology is certainly a bit scary, but we have a lot to gain, and genetic engineering might just be a step in the natural evolution of intelligent species in the universe. We might end disease. We could extend our life expectancy by centuries and travel to the stars. There's no need to think small when it comes to this topic. Whatever your opinion on genetic engineering, the future is approaching no matter what. What has been insane science fiction is about to become our new reality, a reality full of opportunities and challenges. Videos like this would not be possible without viewer donations on patreon.com. If you want to support us explaining complicated stuff and maybe get your own bird in return, you can do so here. If you want to learn more about CRISPR, we put the sources and further reading in the description. More videos about the whole topic area will follow. If you want to be notified when it happens, you can follow us here.
Google Fi, a phone plan by Google. Meet Simply Unlimited, our most affordable plan for unlimited data, calls, and texts, with rates starting as low as $30.
Imagine someone coming into your kitchen and taking a few tools, a pan, and your garbage. Then they bury everything in the woods. 12,000 years later, an archaeologist is trying to figure out who you were. What was important to you, what video games you played, what you believed in, and what informed your decisions. Because you happened to live during a remarkable time in human history. The Planetary Revolution, when humanity transitioned, becoming a multi-planetary species. In that time, our numbers would explode by orders of magnitude. Our technology and standard of living would improve to levels previously thought impossible, and our self-conception would change forever. And all the future archaeologist has to learn about is your junk in the woods. While we can only hope that this will be someone's problem in 12,000 years, we have the same problem today. We're trying to reconstruct a revolution that took place 12,000 years ago. Today, only shadows remain of the people who experienced our distant past as their present. What remains from our past? We can look at our present in crispy 4K, in color and sound. 3 generations ago, the world was just black and white. One more generation and we see the world through blurred photographs. Further back, paintings and texts become our main way of experiencing the past. A mere 20 generations before us today, every written word had to be copied by hand, and reports became more scarce and less reliable. The first historian lived a mere 100 generations ago. Before him, there are only epics and legends, and dead kings bragging on pieces of stone. 250 generations ago, there are only fragments left in the ground, and images stripped of their original meaning. Eventually, humanity becomes basically invisible. Still, we do know some things about our ancestors. Let's try to tell their story and what it means for us today. The greatest transition in human history. For some 2 million years, or roughly 80,000 generations, the life of our ancestors was basically the same. It was around 20,000 years, or 800 generations ago, that the behaviorally modern humans began a process that would change our lifestyle forever. At first, gradually, for some of us, then faster for more of us, and then, suddenly, for almost all of us. Back then, there were about 1 million modern humans on Earth. Most other human species had died out, probably with a little help from us. Our ancestors' biology had given them the necessary tools. A general intelligence to understand things, a social intelligence to understand each other, and language to express abstract ideas and create new concepts. These were people just like you. They suffered and experienced joy, were bored, cried and laughed. They lived in communities of a few dozen people. They controlled fire and had tools made from wood, stone and bone, told stories, mourned their dead, and created art. They traded with other tribes, from obsidian to shellfish. Some hunted big game and were very mobile, others relied more on plants they collected, and others mostly stayed in one area with an abundance of seafood. This was the common state of humanity for most of our history, until a slow transition, step by step, turned into a revolution. Step by step. The first solid evidence for this stems from the Jordan Valley, where our ancestors collected wild wheat more than 20,000 years ago. They noticed that seeds in the ground made more plants the next year. If they put good ones in one place, the next year they had more of the good ones. This was a great supplement to hunting and gathering. You could prepare some crops, return next year, build a temporary settlement, and have a secure food supply. Our ancestors used these bonus crops to bake the first bread and brew the first beer. With every generation, they gathered deeper knowledge about the plants and animals around them and how to manipulate them to their advantage. But there was a lot to learn. Very slowly, from generation to generation, pockets of knowledge expanded and were passed along to be expanded again. This early agriculture started to drastically reduce the space our ancestors needed to feed one individual, which made it possible to stay in one place longer. Around 12,000 years ago, these little pieces of progress had reached a critical mass. Most of the calories we consume today stem from about 15 different founder crops that humans began to domesticate in earnest in the next few thousand years. What we call the agricultural revolution was not a thing that began suddenly one day. It was a slow process driven by small groups over many generations. Eventually, gradual change gave rise to a new era. The human era. During the next few thousand years, progress would speed up and turn hunter-gatherers into farmers who lived in villages, towns, and then cities. When farmers moved into new areas, they replaced the nomadic tribes or turned them into farmers too. This was neither easy nor painless. In the early days, people had a diverse diet made up of up to 250 different plants and animals. For some of the groups transitioning to agriculture, the variation in their diets declined drastically, and some even seemed to have been undernourished. And living close together and with animals created a breeding ground for disease. Virtually every infectious disease caused by microorganisms that have adapted to humans arose in the last 10,000 years. Cholera, smallpox, measles, influenza, chickenpox, and malaria. Mortality, especially among children, rose drastically. Still, our numbers grew because living in the same place enabled women to bear far more children than before, and for a farmer, more kids mean more hands to work the fields. Even with more people dying younger, villages and towns grew. The number of humans on Earth exploded. About 100 generations after the beginning of the human era, there were already 4 million of us. This increased the need for food and forced people to come up with ever more efficient ways of producing calories, solidifying our new lifestyle. Going back to hunting and gathering would have just meant death by starvation for most. One question remains unanswered. Why? Why would people exchange the freedom of living off nature with a huge variety in food for the grind of agriculture and often more limited diets? Nobody knows for sure. Climate change seems to have made the transition possible, and some scientists argue that it was caused by external or overpopulation, both highly contested. Today, the most widely accepted idea is that it was a deliberate choice made by countless communities around the globe. Maybe it's also connected with what makes us human, the ability to come together, develop shared identities, and exchange stories and knowledge. Some archaeologists think that groups of hunter-gatherers traveled long and far to celebrate, to hold feasts and rituals. They would have used these occasions to talk about their version of innovation, better hunting and tool-making techniques, how to catch and breed animals, and which plants could be collected and multiplied. Maybe they even exchanged seeds. It's not unlikely that these gatherings were the catalyst that spread the knowledge of agriculture through the many isolated groups of humanity, ultimately ending a lifestyle that was common to our species for thousands of generations. So by being able to come together, celebrate, share, and learn from one another, these humans might have taken the steps that led to our modern world, and we have much to be grateful for. We are still the same humans today, even if it often doesn't feel that way. Maybe it's time to come together to share what we know and celebrate our existence once again, to begin another peaceful transition, maybe the planetary revolution that will change everything once more. So, hopefully, in another 12,000 years, our descendants will look back on us today with gratitude for the amazing world they are able to inhabit. To celebrate the achievements of our ancestors in the last 12,000 years and to look with hope towards the next 12,000, we present you with the 5th Human Era calendar for the year 12,021. This time, it's all about the journey of humanity. Beginning tens of thousands of years ago, leading into the revolution of agriculture, to ancient high civilizations, and the beginning of modern times, culminating in a vision for our future. You can get the limited edition now until we sell out, and then never again. As always, the calendar features 12 illustrated pages printed on high-quality paper in Europe and the US. And this year, the cover is especially shiny. Not only does the calendar look great on walls and makes it easier to dream about a glorious future and realize how far we've come as a species, it's also the best way to support Kurzgesagt. The calendar enables us to put in the time our videos need and release them for free for everyone. If you want, you can get the calendar with a hoodie or infographic posters or plushie. We've made a few deals for you. Thank you so much to the thousands of people who get the calendar every year, and to the burbs who love what we try to do on this channel. We wish you a happy year 12,021, and let's all hope that it will be less exciting than 12,020.
There's not much else I can do right now on this. I want to do more of the wood grain before I do the feet, so I don't overlap too much on the skin tone. So I think I'll let this dry and do one more. I'll do one more layer on the wood grain as far as adding details before I really start messing with that skin. Alright. I'm gonna go drop this art off, and I'll probably go wash my dad's car. Even though we're supposed to get more rain, this shit is fucking dirty as shit right now. So we got the first layer of wood grain done on Todro 2. It's looking good. I don't know if y'all seen it previously, but the background was just like all black, basically. So we're just trying to fill it in with the wood grain and block out the shadows and everything on there. And I got another art event coming up next Friday. Yeah, so I gotta go drop off some art today. Why is this all crooked? I'm gonna go drop off 2 paintings at a gallery, and then I have 1 painting for a client. Let's see, is this ready? Yeah, that's why I like that spray varnish. Yo, that shit dries so fast, yo. Like, I only sprayed it like, I mean, and varnish normally doesn't take a long time to dry, but for it to get like tacky enough for you to touch it like this, like that, the brush on varnish, it normally takes several hours, 3-4 hours sometimes for you can like touch it like that. But this varnish right here in like an hour and a half. That shit is. I would feel okay wrapping something around this. Like they put the bubble wrap around it. I feel comfortable enough that it can get wrapped like this. So yeah, that's good and ready to go. So we're gonna drop this off at the UPS. Get this on the way. This is going to South Carolina. And UPS be closing early on Saturdays. So